Starting with glycolysis. Glycolysis is the process where your muscles break down glucose to produce energy in the form of ATP. The three phases, it starts with glycolysis, uses a bit of energy to start the process. The muscles use 2 ATP to break down glucose into a smaller molecule called fructose biphosphate. And then in the next phase, the fructose biphosphate is split into two smaller molecules called glyceride and phosphate. These two molecules are used in the rest of the process. So now each of the molecules are converted into pyruvate. During this energy produced, during this, the energy produced is in the form of 4 ATP and 2 NADH. So even though we use 2 ATP at the beginning, we end up gaining 2 ATP and 2 NADH by the end of glycolysis. And then with glycogenolysis, it's the process where your muscles break down glycogen to release glucose for energy. And this also happens with three phases. So the first phase, the glycogen stored in your muscles is broken down into enzymes called glycogen phosphorylase into glucose phosphate. And this is kind of like unlocking the stored glycogen for when you need it. Then the glucose 1 phosphate is going to convert it into glucose 6 phosphate, which is the form of glucose that needs to be entered in glycolysis to be used for energy. This is probably the most important step because it links glycogen breakdown to glycolysis. So the glucose 6 phosphate enters the glycolysis pathway, and from there the process of glycolysis takes over to produce energy, just like glucose turning glucose into pyruvate and generating ATP. So the similarities for these two involves breaking down glucose. They both break down glucose. Both eventually lead to ATP, and then they both happen in the cytoplasm of the muscle cell towards the end. And then the difference is where they're starting. Glycolysis